Well, meanwhile, Russia's Prime Minister, Mikhail Mishustin, is due to meet China's President Xi Jinping. It's part of a two-day visit to Beijing. The two nations have ramped up economic and diplomatic cooperation, with ties growing closer since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Well, let's bring in Katrina Yu. She's across this for us in Beijing. Katrina, I believe that meeting is due to happen any minute now. It's a real reflection of how friendly things have become.
That's right. So Mikhail Mishustin arrived in Beijing earlier today on Wednesday. He was certainly greeted like an old friend, even though this is his first time in China as Russia's prime minister. He met earlier today with Premier Li Qiang and other Chinese officials, and he's due to meet very shortly with Xi Jinping. Now, President Xi sees Russia's friendship and partnership as very important strategically, as he describes that China is locked in an ideological battle with the West, and he needs Putin's support because of that. And partly because of this, we've seen Mishustin, while he's been here, say that China-Russia ties are at unprecedented levels. Now, he's here, of course, to deepen economic cooperation with Beijing, and earlier today with Chinese officials he signed some agreements extending cooperation in trade services, agriculture and in sport. And yesterday in a forum for businessmen in Shanghai, he said that trade between the two countries had the potential of reaching $200 billion this year, and if so, that would be up from $73 billion in 2022. Now, China benefits immensely from this relationship because the West has shunned Russia and Russian firms. It's now very reliant on China, and China gets many benefits, among them cheap oil and gas, and Russia has also agreed to conduct many of its transactions now in Chinese yuan. That's the Chinese currency. But of course, this is not just about Chinese benefits. Beijing is also seeing this as a partly liability because its close ties with Moscow means that its reputation in Europe particularly has also been damaged.
Well, speaking of that reputation, Katrina, I wonder what's happening with Beijing's peace plan for Ukraine. It feels like they've been on that real diplomatic charm offensive in the last few weeks.
That's right. So its special envoy for Eurasian affairs, Li Hui, has been sent to Europe, partly on an image damage control tour, I think. But Beijing is selling this as a peace mission. He's, in the past week, went to Ukraine, Poland and France, and he's also met with EU officials. And Beijing is really at pains to say that China here is an honest broker. It wants to sue for peace. It's a neutral party in this conflict. But of course, that neutrality has been repeatedly questioned by the US and its allies. And if anything, this mission, this peace mission by Li Hui, is also being described as mission impossible, because what China wants is the status quo in Russia to be maintained and for President Vladimir Putin's power to be protected, and they want a ceasefire under those terms. But of course, Kiev has told Beijing over and over again that it will not accept any agreement which involves ceding territory to Russia.
Katrina Yu there across that visit for us in the Chinese capital, Beijing. Thank you, Katrina.